Hey, this is Blake Sloan. I've been selling real estate over 14 years, and our team of highly trained professionals, along with our unmatched marketing, has sold thousands of homes here in the Myrtle Beach area, and this is how we do it.
So we talked about connection, we talked about extra energy, we talked about fluctuation, we talked about closes. Why? What's that matter?
Multiple closes, always be closer.
It's imperative.
Transfer of energy influence people.
Right? Our goal here is to influence people, but to do so, this is a formula I created based on my experiences, that it has to flow the right way. And so you have to do the right things in the right order, especially when we're talking about sales, right? So the first part, connection, the first thing I need to do is my number one priority to my client, to my person on the phone, to my lead, to my prospect is what?
To connect.
To connect. How do I do that?
Hop and punch. Tonality.
Tonality, right? Meaning that I lead with my tonality, I lead with a connective type conversation, and also some of that times it is the pop, right? I mean, to break their pattern, to come in and connect with them. If I'm face to face, the first number one priority I have is to connect with that person. Visually, physically, obviously I'm shaking hands, and then obviously how I communicate with them from a tonality standpoint, that is my number one priority first. I do it before anything else. Why?
Lets their guard down.
Lets their guard down. What else?
Allows you to ask questions.
Right? What else?
Because if you hit them with energy without connection, it's just going to turn them off.
All these are right? So my goal here is I got to open the gate to be able to influence. And the reality is they're judging the crap out of you the first 2 seconds anyways. And so I want to play the game that way and connect. We're like, look, if I'm able to connect with that person like I was sharing, I like them more. And so I turn to have, you know, the ability to communicate better, just because deep down I don't gotta fake it. I do like them better. And so I mentioned before, anytime I can find rapport items, right? We mentioned somebody likes college football, somebody likes this or that, whatever it is. Their daughter dances, your daughter dances, whatever it is. That's a way to connect with them. And now what? Everybody likes somebody who's just like them. That's a great writer downer. Everyone likes someone who's just like them. Always. And so I don't necessarily have to morph that. I don't change who I am, but what I do is I find something about them that's like me. Eventually, right? So this is really easy to do in the listing presentation. When I'm walking around the property, I'm connecting them, I'm seeing their family photos, I'm seeing their sports teams, I'm seeing their Harley in the garage, whatever it is. You know, and so part of that is a way to connect, and then you're able to find that common ground that both of you are able to communicate on. And it makes everything much easier. And so it's not to do anything more than just influence, but ultimately I connect for one reason, because I feel better, which makes everything else go better for me. And so it's got to be a legitimate connection for it to make sense. On the phone, my tonality has to be a tonality of connection. Meaning that when I share the example, when I call so-and-so from wherever they're at, hey John, this is Blake from Myrtle Beach. How you doing, right? We're buddies and we've known each other since we were in college. And so again, the battle here is the battle of the subconscious mind. And so when I connect with them through emotion, through tonality, they can't really defend against that. You'll get every once in a while, maybe 1 out of 20 that they're just so angry at life they're not going to be able to overcome that. But in reality, is the other 19 are going to work fine. And so what I was getting at is the other items don't matter if you don't find a connection. That's why I wanted this number one priority, right? That's why I put that number one on the list. Number 2 here. Extra energy. Why is that? We talked about that. Why?
It transfers.
Because your energy transfers.
So energy transfers, right? We talked about this. There's tonality to the transfer of energy. The way to get people to move and influence is through energy. And so part of that is I've got to be able to do that. But there's another reason why I put extra energy.
Because you come in, you think you come in with a lot of energy, but you really don't.
You never have as much energy as you think you do.
Right.
You've got to turn that up to an extra level. And I don't mean to a level that's fake. That's why they put, you know, whatever the fake energy is, it is extra energy. Meaning that you're bringing more to the table than you think you are, than you naturally would. Whatever you think you got, what do you need to do? Turn that knob up that to the next level and bring that part to the presentation, bring that part to the phone call. This makes the biggest difference in your phone calls. If you got to get up, we went to an office yesterday, my buddy Caleb's office. They had a top Remax team in the state for years. And they had all their desks, and they were like a cold call based company, but all their desks were what?
Side by side and open.
Side by side, standing up.
Yep.
Their whole office was less than the size of this for where the agents were at. You know what I mean? Just lined up along the wall, standing up. But the reason they stand up is what? You have more energy, and you can connect that. That's important and imperative when you're cold calling all the time. With us, we got warm leads. And so that's much easier, but you still got to connect. And so I want to have this, and you want to have the extra energy to connect. So what I'm getting at, connection opens the door, but tonality is what transfers energy. So I need to turn this up energy-wise, both in the appointment as well. Why? Because I want them to feel it. I want them to feel me. I want them to feel like this person's got energy. Energy is contagious. You ever notice that? Where like you're in a bad day, you know somebody who's just like, boom, they're in a great mood and they're popping all the time. It's kind of hard to be in a bad mood around them, right? And so that's where you want to be for your clients. Both on the phone and both face-to-face, and every single time you're showing property. And that's something to be aware of. I think a lot of people mess up is once you have that rapport with your client, once you have that relationship, we go to the property, what do? Murmur, right? Here's a kitchen cabinet. So you gotta sometimes turn that switch, flip the switch on and say, I gotta bring this to the table today. I want to come in with energy because why? Like that's the most important part of the pivotal situation is when do they make the decision to make the move?
Can you smell the turkey?
Yeah, and this is an emotional buy.
Yeah.
It's also an emotional sale, and so you've got to tap into that energy, and so energy makes you move. So when someone's scared, like, should we pull the trigger? You've got to be able to bring the energy to help influence them, if you know it's the right decision for them, right? We're doing this based on going through the initial discovery session, going through what their needs are, going through the presentation, and now we know that. Guess what? I can easily influence. Say, look, yeah, this is the best damn house for you guys. This is exactly what you need. And imagine yourself here in Thanksgiving, in Christmas, when all this stuff's going on. What's that going to feel like? And you got to bring that with energy. You can't just be like, imagine what Thanksgiving's going to be like, right? You got to bring energy. It's going to be awesome. You got the Christmas tree right here. You guys will have the big turkey right here. We could probably sit 6 or 7 people around this table. What's that going to feel like for you guys? And they can feel your energy, meaning that you turn this up. The number one weakness I saw just listening, watching is in 2 places. Number 1, telephone. Because you've got to keep that sustained. Some of y'all, it'd be good for the first hour, right? And then it falls down. That's why we train that in the morning. Make your calls first thing, because I don't want to have a home inspection that goes sideways. I don't want to deal with the person who's mad about, whatever going on with their loan. I want to get all this in first as an agent so that I can have my extra energy and focus on that. If you're reading through your emails and do all this other stuff, that's going to be at least 2 days a week going to take you off your game. Period. So just ignore that stuff. There's nothing on the planet that cannot wait till 11 o'clock. If you do anything, what I'll do sometimes, I'll scan all my emails that morning, batch it out, leave it, and then I go right back to whatever I need to do. Because I know if I'm going to get something that's going to piss me off, I'm going to be off my game. Guess what happens to my energy? Goes down. Or if I have to fake it, which doesn't work because it's not able to be done. At least from an influence standpoint. Does that make sense to y'all there? Third one, we need fluctuation. We talked about that. Well, tell me more about that.
It's the highs and lows in your
Yeah.
voice when you're coming in on the phone with that tonality again. You want to be able to fluctuate pretty smoothly to grab their attention too, especially in the first 4 to 5 seconds that you talk to them.
The entire time, right?
Yeah,
you need the ups. You take them to the high,
Yep.
take them back down to the low.
So we talked about that both. On the phone, that was a good way for Ryan, but then in the presentation, same thing, kind of the questions and the backing up, and then kind of like the dance.
What was the analogy?
The dance.
Fishing.
Oh,
The fishing, right? We also
Yeah.
talk about dancing, but
Yeah.
the analogy is I have a huge fish, right? And if I'm reeling in a giant tuna or whatever you're gonna call it, let's say a marlin, and it's gonna be a fight, right? So I'm reeling, I'm pulling. What's gonna happen? They're gonna run back the other way. The fish is gonna run. I'm gonna fight it back in, and it's a back and forth movement all the way to the process until I get that fish to the boat, get the fish on the boat. It's the same thing here where you gotta be able to have back and forth, but the big thing is it's gonna be murmur, we talked about. I hear it all the time. You guys get into a level, we talked about it, it's flat or eventually goes down based on that. So kind of what we see in the presentation a lot of times is this. I hear it through the walls, I can hear it, listen to it, and so part of that is you gotta be aware to take them to the high highs and low lows. This also has to do with speed. You speed up a little bit, slow down a little bit, right? Take your voice up higher, take your voice down lower, consistently so that you can have them follow. What it is we're not tricking it, but we're keeping the subconscious mind captivated because it doesn't know what the hell is going on. It's trying to judge like what's happening right now, what's going on, where are they going faster, are they going slower, and so they have to keep involved or engaged because they're trying to figure out what's going on. Consciously they know what's going on, they listen to you, but subconsciously you're keeping that dance and that back and forth, and what I'm doing there is I'm making their subconscious dance with me. Does that make sense, y'all? If I had to pick out the number one thing that's a weakness presentation-wise, this, right? When you come from a speed standpoint and a volume standpoint, This is the music that you gotta play in the presentation when you're face to face with them. Same thing in the house, right? You wanna walk around, show the house, speed up the conversation, take the conversation a little bit slower. If you're influencing. I'm not gonna do that in normal conversation over and over, but if I'm at a point of presenting, a point of sharing, that's what I gotta do in that regard. Number 3, we talked about that, right? That's the hook. Number 4.
Closes.
Closes, when?
Always.
Always, consistently through the process. I like to call them anchors, right? I'm anchoring in their subconscious mind small decisions, small decisions, small decisions. And so by the time that we're at the end of that, what happens? The big decision's easy. And I've helped anchor that, and I know before ever get to the back end if we're good or not. On the listing presentation and on the buyer presentation, it's the same exact thing. Same thing on the phones, right? What do you think you're doing? You guys looking to make a move next few months?
Yes.
Yeah, anchor,
Yep.
right? Do you guys have an agent help you when the time is right? No, anchor, right? So what I'm doing there is I'm shutting that door. And so if you notice in the script what happens in the back end, there's a strategy to this. On the back end, you make the offer. What happens? What do you hear in their voice? Well, yeah. I mean, now they're stuck, right? Because they're trying to think of all the ways in their mind, like, holy crap, how do I get out of this?
But I told him this. I told
Yeah,
him this,
I'm already
this.
locked in. So that's why it's called NLP, right? Neuro-linguistic programming. I'm shutting the doors, shutting the doors, shutting the doors. I'm programming their mind so that once I make the offer here, the reality is they can't bullshit me and get out of it. Not to, and I'm doing that because it's for the betterment of them. Because why? People are scared to be sold. So the natural reaction for anybody once they're sold is to what? Pull back and find excuses. That's what most people have what they want in life. Very few people charge through that scary stuff. Okay, and so that's what I'm doing with the presentation. The key here of the presentation, the buy side, is that these are anchored box by box, place by place, pace by pace. And we talked about that. Listening sometimes, people forget about those. So you're doing what? What do we call it? There's a word for that. Starts with a B.
What is it? Wait.
When people just go right through the presentation without dropping anything.
Bulldozing.
Bulldozing, right? Most people bulldoze through the presentation, they get to the back end, they ask the question to close, and what happens? They say, oh, I gotta think about it, I'm not sure. And then you're blindsided because you have no idea why. But the reality is you missed anchors and opportunities to close, and so now you gotta be able to go back to scratch, and most people just end up failing.
When bulldozing, you're obviously not doing the closes because you're not getting that interaction, and you're not doing any fluctuation because you're just bulldozing. You're just literally like reading,
Right?
you know,
and
almost.
this is what we talk about. This is a recipe.
Yeah.
So I can't do 3 and not the 4. Because I can have amazing energy, great fluctuation, amazing connection with my client. If I don't close or have the guts to close, what happens to the back end? They're thinking about it, right? I gotta think about it.
Or it's an easy sign.
And you know what? I deserve to get thinking about it if that's the case, because I did not help them make the small decisions in their mind that earn permission to make a big decision. And it's much easier as humans to make small decisions that lead to a big decision, especially when it comes whose agent you're going to use for 12 months. Right? Am I locked into this person? Am I going to list my house to this person for 6 months? And so ultimately, these are small decisions. We make the same thing in the property, right? I'm doing anchors and closes. This is something that you think is what's right for your family or not. We talk about all these things so that I can build up to that. And it's just how our mind works. Once I make small decisions, I'm committed, right? We get to big commitments by making small commitments first. And so that's just something that's important to understand. I was reading something recently this week that said, aim small, miss small. What do you think that means?
If you widen in your area, then you're missing.
You set your goals low, you're gonna always.
Deeper, there's a deep part. Going back to like shooting or something, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
You're not shooting for a wide
When I pick that
target.
deer out and he's
Yeah.
80 yards off, I pick a spot. I pick a hair.
On that deer.
Because it's a lot easier to miss that one hair.
Exactly right.
But I won't miss the whole deer.
That's the exact analogy I was looking for.
Yeah.
So if I aim small to a very specific situation, specific target, my chance of missing are going to be much more small. So if I'm just aiming for that deer, and I'm just going for maybe in the middle of this deer, who knows, right? What happens is you're going to miss by a lot bigger margin. Versus being dialed in. Same thing with your goals, but more importantly, this is how you're working with your clients. So I'm tying in. I call it anchoring, right? I visualize dropping the anchor off in the mind to help make the decision. And I do the same thing to myself. Small commitments, small commitments, small commitments. Now I'm already committed, and I got to follow through. And that's a way to hack your mind. Notice most people have a challenge doing one thing in life. What is it?
Making commitments.
But on top of that, if they do make them, what happens? They don't follow through, right?
Yeah.
You see the same thing with 90-day goals. Everyone makes commitments, but they don't follow through. And how you do that is small commitments, small commitments. For me, the example of the human is core 4 every day. That's small commitments that build to the weekly commitments that build to the 90-day challenge commitments. It's a way to reverse engineer. And so what I want you guys to take away from this too is don't be fearful to close. I mentioned the most pain I went through when I was selling in the timeshare world before was that I was scared to really go for the hard close because I didn't want what? A no, a rejection. And so every single, I gotta know their objection like 30 minutes in and I wouldn't overcome it. I get to the back end like, it's just gonna slip underneath the radar, right? It's gonna be under the mat, they ain't gonna ever come back up. And what happened? That was the one reason that was a problem every single time that wouldn't close, and there was no way for me to overcome it at that point. Once I go back, right, it's impossible for me to do that. I trained this a while back that an objection is best covered before it's spoken. And we talked about, when I taught that, if you remember, we talked about once it goes from your subconscious mind to your conscious mind, and it's a spoken word, it's much more difficult to overcome because in our mind it's real. And so once that client's spoken that objection, it's a real objection. Meaning that it's got a lot more tangible aspects to it, energy to it, so to speak, that makes a big difference. And so this is the key here, to write things in the right order. And I have a suspicion, just listening, that a lot of people get fearful to tie these down, to drop these anchors. Because you don't feel confident enough yet in your presentation. You don't feel confident enough with your certainty. Or, here's the deal, you don't even remember that shit. Right? You're too busy worrying about what's in the next box to drop the anchor from the previous box.
Right.
And so look at it as I don't move to the next box until I do what?
Close.
Close. AKA anchor. AKA earn permission to go to the next spot. Does that make sense? And so the same thing in properties. Hey, what do you guys like best about this property? What do you least about this property? Will you change anything going forward? What would need to change? Same stuff, right? Anchors. I'm anchoring what they like, and I'm trying to find what they dislike so I can obviously anchor against that or use that in the next property. Does that make sense? Or there's a lot they like and not much they don't like. I'm gonna come back to that property, right? If I show 10 other ones, the other ones don't match. Does that make sense? And so we're constantly understanding the psychology of how the human brain works. That's the important part. All this is really coming from what we talked about, a hyper-awareness of tonality. Meaning that, right? Tonality is a transfer of energy every single time. And so as I have better tonality, right? When I call a person, hey Joe, what's up man? It's Blake from Myrtle Beach, how you doing? I have a much more connected energy to them. They can feel me. I want them to be like, that dude is crazy. Period. Right? I don't know what it's about them, but they're awesome. They're crazy. You know what I mean? Like, and we talked about the last thing here is why is that a problem in the phone today?
Because they're getting blown up with either robocallers or people that are just murmur. I want to sell you serious radio all day. Yeah.
All day, right? Selling them stuff in these giant phone rooms, or whatever it is. I visualize some person like in some middle of the country, mid-America, in this giant building calling on the headset, right?
Yeah.
And so the reality is, I got to break that. I'm the dude from the beach where it's 95 degrees or 90 degrees and sunny, and I'm going to brighten up their day, and I got to break that pattern. So how do I break the pattern? Is through energy, through calling them. You got to stand up your desk, right? Have the energy, move around. And so that's just something that's important. They talk about that in boiler room, right? Motion creates emotion. And so as you move and create that different parts, now I can give that part. That's way better than any script. I mean, you got to have that aspect of it to make it work. And if you're getting no's or people that are pissed off at you, there's one place you need to go inspect.
Yourself.
Tonality of you, right? Your energy on the inside.
I kind of heard this a few weeks ago when I was talking to Barron. There were a couple other people in the office, and I think I said it a couple meetings ago, but the more ridiculous I sounded in my own mind, the better I did on the phone.
Yeah.
And it just works.
And sometimes it may feel fake a little bit. I don't want to feel fake. I just want to have pop, right? The last thing we talked about is I want to have that electric pop that comes through.
Yeah.
Me too. I can't remember who it was. Megan, somebody had electric energy, right? It was the saying, right?
Yeah,
You back corner, that's what it was last time. But the reality is,
Jason
right?
said it.
Jason said it because Jill said it, I think. Yeah. So the reality is, you want to have the electric energy. Meaning, do your people feel you on the phone? Can they feel you? Can you feel you? If you can't feel you, they can't feel you, right? And so that's something important. It's hard. Why? Because I've been grinding, made 100 calls, I'm like call number 70, and that one person answers. And so it's my job to step it up and make that happen at that point so I can get through and break through. But just know if I can 10x what that was, and you weren't here on Tuesday, but we mentioned when you recorded yourself, you weren't near as energetic as you thought you were.
No.
Not even close, right? And so that's the important part for you guys to make sure you're understanding there.
I actually remember talking to you on the way out. Felt that way inside. I did. And then listening to that recording, I was like, damn.
Yeah,
It wasn't even...
We've had many people like, man, I crushed that. We've had people that argue with us, man, I crushed that appointment down there. They were just that nobody can assign them, right? They're just investors. They're not really looking anyways, right? And then you go back and listen to the recording, and they're like, "Holy cow, I was terrible," right? And so you don't hear yourself like they hear you. And so the number one thing I mentioned on Tuesday was takeaway was what? Record everything, everything, everything. Okay, your story doesn't match reality, and so that's kind of the last part there from that. Anybody have any questions or anything else?